All right, let's talk about the future, the big one. We're looking at two really different ideas for how to build a better world. On one hand, you've got the dream of a perfect algorithm running everything. On the other, a world guided by a strong, clear moral compass. So, which blueprint is the right one? Let's dig in. So, it really boils down to this fundamental question, right? When everything feels like it's in chaos, what's the answer? Do we try to engineer this perfect top-down system to fix it all? Or do we need to build something totally different from the ground up? Cultivate a new kind of human leadership. And this slide, wow, it just perfectly captures those two paths we're talking about. I mean, look at this. On the left, you see that vision, right? The clean, elegant, perfectly optimized technological solution. But then on the right, well, that's the reality of today. It's messy, tangled, full of human conflict, and just inefficient systems. Before we get into the solutions, let's first really understand the problem that both sides are trying to tackle. Okay, so from one point of view, the core diagnosis is this. We're living in a world of systemic failure. And that's a fancy way of saying our problems aren't just one-off things. They're not isolated incidents. They're actually baked right into the very systems we've built to run our world. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The argument here is that our biggest problems, like hunger and scarcity, they're not actually problems of production. We have enough. They're problems of management. It's a logistics nightmare. You see that tangled mess at the top? That's our world right now. Total chaos, with resources and people just bumping into each other inefficiently. The proposed solution? It's that beautiful, simple line below it. A direct, optimized, elegant path straight from the problem to the solution. So, how in the world do you get that kind of elegant simplicity? Well, one super ambitious plan proposes what it calls a fully engineered path to global abundance. We're talking about a world where technology is designed to completely wipe out scarcity and waste. And look, this isn't just about one new app or gadget. No way. This is a complete architecture for a whole new world. It's built on three main pillars. First, there's a foundational ecosystem that brings together tech, government, and academia. Then you've got a powerful new economic engine to create prosperity. And holding it all together right in the center is this intelligence core that manages the whole shebang. So the million-dollar question is, how does this core actually work? Well, the sources give us a fantastic analogy. Think of it this way. GENI is like a brand new, powerful quantum engine. It's providing all the raw horsepower and direction for the entire system. And CUPA? That's its super advanced GPS, and I mean super advanced. It's constantly calculating the fastest, safest, most efficient route for every single resource on the planet. Engine and GPS, simple as that. And with that level of intelligence, I mean, the claim here is just staggering. The idea is that this system has a filter that can basically eliminate all the bad options, all the inferior choices, and find the single best path forward with 99% accuracy. Just think about that. It's a vision of near-perfect logistical precision. Okay, but what does all that fancy optimization actually produce in the real world? Well, something you can literally hold in your hand. It's called a miracle bar. It's a plant-based food source that gives you a full week's worth of nutrition. And the goal? To produce 2 billion of these a month. That's enough to feed the entire planet. This is what that idea of engineered abundance actually looks like. Okay, so while one vision is all about engineering the future with shiny new tech, there's a whole other perspective that says, hang on, we can't even begin to move forward until we have a deep, honest reckoning with our past. And this, as you can imagine, leads us down a completely different path. Let's take a look at the recent protest movements in Iran for a second. The initial slogan, Woman, Life, Freedom, was incredibly powerful, right? But then it evolved. They added man, homeland, prosperity. And that wasn't an accident. It was a very deliberate move to make the struggle universal. It totally reframed the goal, moving it from a specific grievance to this much broader project of restoring national sovereignty and building a stable future for absolutely everyone. And this is at the heart of this second approach. It argues you simply cannot understand today's conflicts without what it calls historical literacy. Documents like the Balfour Declaration or the Sykes-Picot Agreement, they aren't just dusty old papers in a museum. They're basically the geopolitical contracts. They're the foundational agreements that drew the maps and wrote the rules that countries are still living by and often struggling with to this very day. And really, this is the ultimate goal here. For so many people, real true progress isn't just about swapping out one government for another or getting a new policy passed. No, it's something much deeper. It's about a nation recovering its own identity, its own story, and its own power to shape its destiny. So, okay, if a perfect algorithm isn't the whole answer, and if protest by itself isn't enough, then what's the missing piece of the puzzle? Well, according to this line of thinking, it's a new kind of leadership. And check this out. This model for peace actually connects high-level geopolitical strategy with really deep ethical principles. What it suggests is that for any system of trust and stability to actually work, it has to be built on a foundation of moral ideas. We're talking about things like forgiveness and mercy, principles that have the power to heal what the text calls ancient wounds. It's saying you really can't have the strategy without the morality. They have to go together. So what does a leader for this new world actually need? What's on the job description? Well, 4 key pillars really stand out from the source materials. First, ethical clarity. You gotta know what your moral compass is. Second, that historical literacy we just talked about. You have to understand where things came from. Third, narrative leadership, which is the skill of seeing through propaganda and bias. And finally, cultural stewardship, a deep commitment to protecting a nation's unique legacy and heritage. And this brings us to the final act. This is where these two ideas that seem like total opposites, the tech-focused architect and the human-focused moral steward, this is where they might actually come together. I absolutely love this analogy from one of the sources. It says that true stewardship is like restoring an ancient damaged tapestry. Think about it. You can't just come in and impose a whole new design on top of it. No. First, you have to understand the original pattern. That's the history. And then you have to understand the strength and quality of the individual threads. And that's the ethics, the culture, the people involved. Only when you understand both can you weave a future that's both new and authentic. And here, we see a roadmap that just beautifully blends both of these visions together. It's a 4-stage process. It starts with the seed. That's the initial funding, the technology, the foundation. But it moves very quickly to the sapling, which is all about the crucial work of unifying humanity, building trust. See the shift? Only after that can it bear fruit, which is global production and real prosperity. And that all leads to the final stage, a royal oasis, a network of safe, thriving communities. So you see, technology makes human flourishing possible, but it's human unity that gives that technology its purpose. So here we are, right back where we started, but now with a totally new perspective. We have blueprints for a world of engineered abundance, and we also have frameworks for cultivating wise, ethical leaders. So the final critical question isn't which path is better anymore. It's who do we trust to walk both paths at the same time? Who can be both the brilliant architect and the wise steward? That, I think, is the real challenge for all of us as we try to design the future.